We have finally gotten to game week in college football for the Clemson Tigers. They're hosting LSU in one of the biggest games of week one. To help me break it down, I've got Tiger Paw Craven here. Tiger Paw, man, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to talk a little Clemson LSU.
It's good to be talking about an actual game and not, just power ranking teams or doing some off-season kind of reports, breaking down positions. For those who don't know, Tiger Paw Craven is part of Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. You can find him here on YouTube as well as on X, and I'll put his X handle here. So, folks, check him out. Watch this video if you enjoy it. Be sure to give him a follow. So let's start off. Let's just dive right in. And let's start optimistic. What, if anything, about this game, this opener? Are you feeling like, man, Clemson's really got an advantage at this position or in this situation? Clemson, I just feel really good about X going up against LSU.
Yeah, I mean, look, Ryan, when you go to break down some of the bigger games in college football, it's no surprise, and this isn't breaking news to anybody, but it all starts in the trenches, right? That's where these big-time games, especially when there's comparable talent on the field, which I feel like there is between Clemson and LSU. They have very comparable rosters when it comes to overall talent, but it starts in the trenches. And that's really where I feel like Clemson has an advantage. When you look at LSU, they lost a lot of offensive linemen to the NFL last year. And they weren't particularly great on the ground running the ball either, even with those NFL caliber offensive linemen. So they're replacing all those guys. And I know they bring in a lot of talent and they recruit really well. But when you're breaking in a new offensive line against this Clemson Tiger defensive front that we expect to be one of the brighter parts of the defense this year, and Peter Woods and TJ Parker and DeMonte Capard and the new transfer and Will Helt. I mean, that to me is where Clemson's advantage really starts. When you're really trying to break this game down and try to think about the game within the game, I think Clemson does have a pretty significant advantage when you're looking at our defensive line versus their offensive line.
I agree. That's what I had is Clemson's biggest advantage, and I don't think it's close. So last year they only averaged 4.1 yards per carry, as you alluded to, a really poor rushing team. So Kyle McCord was really the only quarterback in college football that was more relied on, at least on a halfway decent team from Syracuse, than Nussmeier. Nussmeier was number 2 nationally in pass attempts. So teams knew what was coming, and yet they still couldn't get to him. And he's not mobile. They just had a poor run blocking, but a great pass blocking O-line. And that's why 4 guys got drafted, which is pretty incredible. Will Campbell went 4th overall. 3 others got drafted, not signed as free agents, but drafted. So that's an incredible amount of NFL talent to lose off of an O-line in 1 year. I don't. Is my 20 years of fanhood, I don't think I've ever seen that from Clemson. So that's really impressive, and kudos to them. But that's tough to replace. And so, yeah, I think, TJ Parker coming off the edge, Will Helt off the edge. I think Peter Woods is going to look like a totally different player, supposedly more in shape and actually at his right position. And Nussmeier had negative rushing yards. He's not a runner. So if he doesn't have a good O-line, I think he could regress. So that's where I strongly agree with you there. Now let's flip it. Let's flip the script a little bit. What are you worried about, whether it's position to position or just situational? What's got you a little bit concerned?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Clemson, there are some question marks for Clemson, obviously. On the defensive side of the ball, you're replacing one of, Clemson's best safeties in a while in R.J. Mickens. I mean, he's out the door. You got a lot of depth there. You got a lot of guys that have played a lot of football. But again, when you take that quarterback, if you will, in the deep off of that Clemson Tigers team, there's some room. And this LSU offense, is as bad as they were at running the ball last year. They were really explosive. They were really good at passing the football. So, in my mind, that's got me a little worried. If you cannot get pressure on Garrett Nussmeier and you allow him to sit back there with these, absolute dogs that he has at wide receiver, it could turn into a longer day for Clemson, and it could really turn into a shootout where it's Clemson's offense versus LSU's offense and who can score the most points and make the least amount of mistakes. So if I'm trying to pick a place where there's a little bit of a concern, that's my concern. If Clemson cannot get the rush to Garrett Nussmeier, that could potentially spell some trouble for the Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, we're really on the same page here, because that's what I had noted down too. Is I think that Clemson's got a real advantage in the trenches when LSU has the ball. But if they don't get home on the quarterback, I worry. R.J. Mickens is a bigger loss than people realize. Khalil Barnes was great. He was awesome 2 years ago. Last year, he was just okay. Kylon Griffin, he was awesome 2 years ago. Last year was just okay. Is Hannafin going to play a big role? He's never really played a meaningful, in big time situation outside of special teams for Clemson, right? And he might be the nickel. He might be one of the top safeties. Ricardo Jones was a freshman last year. He looked great as a freshman, but like Barnes and like Griffin, he could experience a sophomore slump. So I think kind of that safety spot. I feel good about cornerback, but safety is, if they really take too long to get home. I agree that is the big concern. So, I mean, this LSU team supposedly spent $18 million in NIL. They have either the number 1 or number 2 transfer class, depending on where you look. It's them in Texas Tech. So they're going to be tough. And what I've been kind of pondering, and I wrote an article and have a video, which basically says, look, last year Clemson was kind of the paper Tigers. They only had one decent win. It was SMU. They were 85th in stopping the run, which is, terrible. And I was just listening to Bill Connolly this morning, and he has Clemson outside of his top 10 in the SP+. And his reasoning is, well, the last 4 years, they've been about the 20th best team. Now, they bring back more production than anyone, but do you go from the ballpark 20th best team to second, third, fourth best team?
Right.
How realistic is that jump? Because I've got Clemson playing for a national championship. Am I over my skis? Like, how high is it? How high can you be on this team before it becomes unreasonable?
Well, me and Jordan just talked about this last night on our show over on Clemson at the Voice of College Football. And I don't think, personally, I don't think you're over your skis, Ryan, for having Clemson in the national championship. And when you're thinking about that, and I get that they have not been there, but you look at everything that this team returns, we've kind of been building to this. Since the hire of Garrett Riley, this offense has been building to the 2025 version of what they will be. Now, the big question mark is, how improved is Clemson's defense going to be? Because I feel really great about the offense. I don't really see a scenario where Clemson's offense is not extremely explosive this season in 2025. I really don't. Now, the defensive side of the ball, obviously, we bring on Tom Allen to replace Wes Goodwin, and that was a much-needed change and I think a great hire by Dabo Swinney. But what is realistic in year one for Tom Allen to really improve? Like, how much do they really improve? Do we take care of setting the edge and not allowing ourselves to get just completely blasted on the edge over and over again, which happened way too often last year in the Louisville game, in the Texas game, in the Citadel against Stanford? I mean, we got along the edge, running outside, really torched this Clemson Tiger defense. And that's really going to be the question that has to be answered for these Clemson Tigers in 2025. It's going to come down to how improved Clemson's defense is. And that's kind of weird to say as a Clemson Tiger fan, because the defense has always been what you're going to get with Clemson. They're going to be, a top 10, top 5 defense year in, year out. It's really how's the offensive going to perform from year to year. But it's kind of flipped in 2025. And you're really, if you're a Clemson fan, you have to have a legitimate question on how improved is this defense going to be in year one of Tom Allen.
Yeah, and scheme is a big part of that, and they're talented. They bring back a lot. But the thing that's got me maybe a little bit more optimistic than I usually tend to be is this offseason. I've heard the players talk about T.J. Parker talking about more accountability, and Tyler Venables talking about how they were embarrassed last year. And then I think back when they lost to Duke the year before last, Barrett Carter admitted after the game that, man, I didn't realize that I wasn't in game shape. And now guys are showing up 45 minutes early to lift. And I just wonder, is there a culture shift that was subtle, but the players, it wasn't self-led enough. It wasn't coaching motivated enough. And it got a little slack, got a little country club. And now everyone's pushing hard. If the players aren't pushing themselves, the coaches will do it. So the players are doing it. That's more important to me than scheme. And that's what I'm picking up and why I'm so optimistic.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there, Ryan. There has clearly been a culture shift from the Wes Goodwin era to the Tom Allen era. And you could see Clemson Tigers defense slipping year over year under
West.
Wes Goodwin. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's not a shot at Wes Goodwin. I don't think he's a terrible coach or anything. I just think, like, in my opinion, on the defensive side of the ball, the guy that is at the helm of that, he has to have a certain demeanor about him, a certain intensity about him. And that just wasn't naturally who Wes Goodwin was. And I think that bled over to the players. And like you mentioned, there was a lack of accountability. There was a lack of, a sense of urgency on that side of the ball. And it showed. It showed in some of the wins last year. I remember me and Jordan doing our post-game live video for every single game. And there'd be games where we won by a significant margin, but we were on there talking about, like, what is up with his defense? Like, why are we giving up 17, 21 points in the fourth quarter when a game was essentially over? There was no killer instinct on that defense. There was no finishing on that defense. And I think it goes back to a lack of accountability. And when Tom Allen first came on, he was very blunt with the Clemson media when he talked about he went and watched tape from not only the games, but practice. And he was like, in no way, shape, or form was it good enough. We didn't practice good enough. We didn't play good enough. There wasn't enough intensity. And that seemed to have been righted this offseason. And one of the major things that you mentioned there that I think people aren't understanding enough, and why I myself am really high on Clemson and I think they're going to the national title this year, is because I believe this is a player-led team. That defense wants to go out there and prove themselves more than anything. You hear the guys talk at ACC Media Days. You hear them talking regular interviews to the media, and they're constantly asked about all this hype that Clemson's getting heading into the 2025 season, and they respond with the same thing over and over again. Hey, we just got to go out on the field and prove it. We're ready to go out on the field and prove it. So I think they're in the proper mindset, and this is a very player-led team as far as the intensity. And I think that's a recipe for a lot of success in 2025 for Clemson.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. We've been agreeing a lot. Let's see if there's something we can disagree on. A running back. I've been really high on David Iziomume, and I'm kind of a fan of this move of Adam Randall. I think it's both like classic Clemson family sticking with the program, but also makes sense and is a good fit, not just a nice story. I expect them to be the top two backs, with Randall being running back one, at least probably through the Georgia Tech game. So three games. And then we'll see if Haynes comes back or Gideon Davidson kind of takes strides, figures out the pass protection and all that. But I see those two as the two kind of, 1A, 1B. And I'm hoping this attack could be somewhat balanced. I feel okay about it. How concerned are you about it? Do you disagree on those two players? What do you think?
I don't disagree on the two players. I think it's clear heading out of fall camp that Adam Randall and Eazy-E are 1 and 2. I think they're going to get the bulk of the snaps when it comes to running back against LSU. In fact, I think those two are probably going to be the sole runners against LSU unless something gets out of hand, which I don't see that happening at all. Now, I do have a drawback to our running back situation. I like the depth that we have. Eazy-E, you mentioned Gideon Davidson. How much is he going to be able to progress as the season goes? I think he's probably physically ready right now to run the football. I just don't think he probably has the grasp on the offense or the protection to be an every down back right now.
Gideon Davidson?
Yes, Gideon Davidson.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I like what we see from what we've heard from Adam Randall so far. I mean, he looks great. He looks like a running back, 6'2", 235 pounds, and he can fly. And the best things that Adam Randall does in football is run with the ball in his hands. He wasn't great at getting open and getting separation, which is why he didn't have a lot of success at wide receiver. My one drawback, though, is his injury history. The running back position is significantly more physical and more taxing on the body than being a wide receiver. It just is. You got to put your face in there on blitzes, on big defensive ends, on linebackers running full speed, and then the pounding of constantly being tackled by multiple people play in and play out. So if I have one drawback, that's my concern, is that Adam Randall won't stay healthy. Because I think if he doesn't, Clemson, if he gets hurt early in the season, I think it could spell some problems for that Clemson running game.
Yeah, I agree. It's obviously a way more physical position, and he's been hurt seemingly every year. Last year was finally healthy, but didn't do anything. But yeah, Clemson needs him to stay healthy at least for, call it 3-4 games. And then, obviously we want him to stay healthy and have a great final year and get drafted. But it'd be tough to sustain an injury, let's say, before Georgia Tech, before Jay Haynes is 100%, before Gideon Davidson is really, really ready. Keith Adams Jr. is perfectly fine, but he's not really a guy you want to give a ton of carries that aren't short yardage to. Jarvis Green's already out for the year or most of the year. So, if he goes down early, this group gets really thin. Let's talk about another position, tight end. A lot of people are, concerned might not be the word, but, expecting some drop off with Jake Briningstool leaving. I'm not. I think Olsen Pat Henry is, if not as good, possibly better. His PFF grade was slightly higher. He's not quite the dynamic receiver, but he's a much better blocker. And then I think they've got depth behind him. Josh Sapp, isn't the blocker, but he can catch. And I'm excited about Bettenker. Is this tight end group better? I think it's better. Is that too much?
I'm going to be completely honest. And this is no shot at Jake Briningstool whatsoever. I loved him as a player. I think he was a great tight end for Clemson. At times he had his limitations, but he was a great, out catching passes, wide receiver. I think this tight end room actually got better this year. And the reason is all the steps forward that you saw in 2024 from Olsen Pat Henry. Because remember, this was a guy that he's a physical tight end, right? Mostly inline blocking, he's very physical. But he proved last year that he is a more than capable receiver. And he is he can become that matchup nightmare for Clemson. And you meant that one of the guys that I'm really high on this year and I think is going to make an impact on this team is Christian Bettenker. That guy, I'm very excited about him. I think he is going to develop into a really good tight end for Clemson, and I think that starts this year. But yeah, like you said, really excited about Olsen Pat Henry. I think he's obviously tight end number one, but those other guys are going to get into the mix, particularly Christian Bettenker, I think.
Yeah, and it's funny because, Ian Shefflin obviously came over to be a tight end, and you can tell by the messaging, even before his DUI situation, you could tell that they were kind of like tamping it down. Don't expect too much. He's going to do some special teams, and now he'll be suspended. And I don't know how much room there is because there's, I think, a lot of talent in this tight end group. So I agree. Let's hit on one last topic, just kind of what you see as we look past this game. So first of all, you said you have Clemson going to the national title. My pick, which folks could see in a separate video, was Penn State over Clemson in the national championship. Do you have the same pick, or did you have Clemson winning it all? What was your pick?
I got Clemson winning it all.
Okay.
I believe in the Tigers. I'm going all in on 2025. It's like I told our listeners over on the Clemson at the Voice of College Football last night. Like, if I'm wrong, me and Jordan will be there at the end of every game in the post game live, and you can come troll us until your heart's content. But I am all in on this Clemson Tiger team in 2025. I think that they are coming to reassert their dominance in college football and remind people that Dabo Swinney did not forget how to coach college football. This staff in particular is massively upgraded. People always want to talk about the talent on the field. They want to talk about the players and Cade Klubnik returning and Peter Woods and TJ Parker and list off all the greats that are currently on the roster for Clemson. And that matters. Like, make no mistake about it. You have to have talent on the field. But if you look at this coaching staff that Dabo Swinney has assembled and the experience that they have, not only in the coordinator position, but the other positions that he surrounded them with, guys that aren't even, technically position coaches or anything like that. They're just there for help, right? Like Lonnie Williams and people like that, right? I think, and you can see it, in my opinion, in Dabo Swinney's demeanor, that he feels very confident, I think, not only about his players and his team, but his coaching staff. He thinks he's got the right recipe to make some noise this season, and we'll see if we get a couple bounces of the balls that go our way and see if we can get a third national championship for Dabo Swinney and fourth for the Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, so I'm sure you have Clemson winning this game then, as you probably should if you haven't winning the national championship. So kind of last thought here. If Clemson wins, then what? Right? I think Clemson is probably number 2 in the country behind the winner of Ohio State, Texas. And if Clemson loses, I mean, they got to drop out of the top 10, maybe the top 15. And you've got to feel pretty bad that you've lost 4 in a row to SEC schools. Set me straight. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so I think they
On both
definitely
sides.
I think they definitely dive into the top 10 or the top 5 if they win against LSU, probably top 2, just because that's a massive win and what LSU is projected to do this year. If they lose the game, I think it does depend on what it looks like. If you just go out there and LSU just looks superior, you don't look like you belong on the field, you'll definitely drop significantly, right? But I could see them not dropping as much if it's a fourth quarter battle, last second score wins the game type deal. They're obviously going to drop, but I don't think they would drop quite as significantly as they would if it looked like week 1 last year against Georgia. So that's the big thing, and it being at home in Death Valley, the real Death Valley, by the way. I don't care how bad it makes LSU fans, but Clemson needs this win. They really do. They need it for the narrative around the program nationally, and they just need it as a springboard into this 2025 season. It would mean a ton. Their season's not over if they lose this game, but it takes a significant hit, and the atmosphere around the team will be not nearly what it is right now if we go out and lose this game.
That's right. Yeah, I totally agree. It's a non-conference game and a huge expanded, 12-team playoff, and yet it feels like the biggest game ever. And hey, look, with the SEC announcing a 9-game schedule and Clemson announcing this long partnership with Notre Dame, probably the last time we get a marquee SEC team to come to Clemson.
Yeah, I mean, that's unfortunate and kind of crazy, but it's the world of college football we live in right now. It's ever changing. I just. You obviously hope those rivalry games don't go away. It doesn't look like they're going to because the SEC is urging their teams to still schedule one.
They're requiring it.
Yeah, requiring them to schedule one major non-con. So I'm assuming South Carolina's one major non-con game will be Clemson every single year. But, yeah, it's unfortunate that we won't be opening up with Georgia anymore, or LSU, or Texas A&M, or Auburn, or all the other teams that we had before. I love those matchups. I love that Clemson schedules aggressively. It helps us out, especially being in the ACC with strength of schedule stepping up. But clearly, those in Clemson foresaw some of this and made that partnership with Notre Dame. So at least we know our athletic department is forward-thinking in ways to solve that kind of issue.
Yeah, I mean, Graham Neff deserves a lot of kudos for being ahead of this. Hey, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. For folks watching, I hope you enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget about our sponsor, Ready Vets, if you live in the Greenville area. And as always, go Tigers. Thank you to our sponsor, Ready Vets. If you live in the upstate and have a dog or cat that needs immediate care, Ready Vets is the place to go. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe.